The plasma cannon scorched the air where Captain Marcus Vale's head had been 3 seconds earlier. He rolled behind the twisted remains of what used to be the communications array, his rifle clutched tight against his chest. The Caliph raiders had come expecting easy prey, another primitive world, to strip of resources before moving on to the next target in their endless expansion. They hadn't expected the humans to fight back with such vicious creativity. "Boss, we got a problem," Jenny's voice crackled through his earpiece. His demolitions expert was somewhere in the maze of corridors that honeycombed the Caliph assault ship. Their shield generator is 3 decks down, but it's crawling with those 8-legged nightmares. Vale pressed his back against the metal bulkhead, feeling the vibrations of heavy footsteps approaching. The Caliph were methodical hunters, but they moved like they'd never faced an opponent who could think 3 steps ahead. "How many charges do you have left?" 6, maybe 7 if I can jury-rig the detonator from that plasma rifle Tom picked. "Up, do it. We need that shield down in 10 minutes, or we're all space dust." The plan had been insane from the start. When the Caliph fleet had appeared in Earth's outer system, humanity's scattered colony ships had been sitting ducks. The aliens had ignored the planet-bound settlements, focusing instead on the orbital installations and manufacturing platforms. They wanted the infrastructure intact, apparently. Just the people had to go. Marcus Vale had been commanding a supply freighter when the first wave hit. While military vessels scrambled to form defensive lines, he'd done something that would have gotten him court-martialed under normal circumstances. He'd loaded his ship with volunteers, miners, engineers, technicians, anyone willing to die for a chance at taking one of those sleek alien vessels intact. The boarding action had been a bloodbath. Caliph warriors stood twice as tall as humans, with chitinous armor that could deflect small arms fire. Their weapons could punch through ship hulls, and their tactical doctrine had been refined over centuries of conquest. But they'd never fought humans before. They'd never faced a species that could look at a plasma conduit and figure out how to turn it into a shaped charge. They'd never encountered soldiers who would use their own life support systems as weapons, venting atmosphere to create improvised projectiles. They'd never met an enemy that could reprogram their own equipment faster than the Caliph could adapt to it. "Vale, you need to see this." That was Rick, their tech specialist, broadcasting from what used to be the ship's command center. "I'm in their navigation core. These star maps, they're not just showing local systems. This is the entire galaxy. Every world they've conquered, every fleet position, every supply depot." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice water. How many worlds? Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. They've been at this for a long time, boss. And according to these projections, Earth was just the beginning. They've got conquest routes mapped out for the next 50 years. The sound of approaching Caliph warriors grew louder. Marcus could hear their clicking communication calls, like insects planning their next meal. But for the first time since the invasion began, he felt something other than desperate fury. He felt hope. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these front lines to you. "Rick, can you download those maps?" "Already on it. But we're talking about massive data files. I need more time." "Jenny, status on those charges?" 30 seconds. "Tom's got the detonator rigged." "But the Caliph are closing in fast." Marcus closed his eyes, running through the tactical situation. They'd come here to steal one ship, maybe learn something about Caliph technology that could help Earth's defenses. Instead, they'd stumbled onto the intelligence coup of the century. The complete strategic picture of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. The Caliph had made their first and final mistake about humanity. They'd assumed that primitive meant stupid. They'd thought that technological inferiority meant tactical incompetence. They'd believed that because humans fought with crude weapons and simple tactics, they couldn't learn, couldn't adapt, couldn't turn captured advantages into devastating weapons. Marcus Vale smiled grimly as he checked his rifle's charge indicator. Time to teach these alien conquerors why underestimating humanity was the last mistake they'd ever make. The star maps were just the beginning. The stolen Caliph vessel Shattering Spear drifted through the asteroid field like a wounded predator, its sleek hull scarred by human modifications. Captain Marcus Vale stood in what had once been the ship's pristine command center, now a chaotic blend of alien technology and human engineering. Cables snaked across the floor, connecting jury-rigged human computers to Caliph control systems. The air hummed with the sound of improvised cooling fans working overtime to prevent the hybrid systems from overheating. The neural interface is fighting us, Rick reported, his hands dancing across a keyboard that looked absurdly small next to the massive Caliph control consoles. Their ships are designed to be operated by creatures with 4 arms and distributed nervous systems. I'm having to reroute everything through our backup processors. Vale nodded, his attention focused on the tactical display showing the outer system. 3 days had passed since their desperate escape from Earth orbit. 3 days of frantic modification and learning while Caliph reinforcements inevitably moved to intercept them. The stolen star maps had revealed the true scope of their enemy's power, and it was terrifying. The Caliph Empire stretched across 17,000 star systems. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming technological superiority, backed by centuries of conquest experience. Individual Caliph ships were faster, more heavily armed, and better shielded than anything humanity had ever built. A single Caliph battlecruiser could reduce a human colony to ash within hours, but the star maps had also revealed something else. The Caliph were predictable. "Jenny, how are the modifications coming along?" Vale asked, turning to where his demolitions expert was elbow-deep in a Caliph plasma cannon assembly. "These things are beautiful," she said, her voice muffled by the access panel. "Elegant design, perfect energy efficiency. But they're designed for space combat against ships with similar technology. They're not built to handle the kind of dirty tricks we specialize in." Tom looked up from the sensor array he'd been rewiring. "I've been analyzing their communication protocols. They use quantum entanglement for instantaneous fleet coordination, but the encryption is based on mathematical constants that don't change. Once you know the base algorithm, you can predict their tactical responses." Vale felt a familiar surge of fierce pride. This was what the Caliph couldn't understand about humanity. They conquered through superior technology and overwhelming force. Humans conquered through adaptation and creative problem-solving. Give a human access to alien technology, and within days they'd figure out how to use it better than the aliens themselves. "Boss, we've got incoming," Rick announced, his voice tight with tension. Long-range sensors show a Caliph fleet formation dropping out of hyperspace. 9 ships, including what looks like a command dreadnought. The tactical display updated, showing the approaching fleet as red icons arrayed in perfect formation. Vale studied the pattern, cross-referencing it against the tactical doctrine files they'd stolen. The Caliph 9th Fleet, according to the star maps. Elite units commanded by war leader Kreth himself. "They're not taking any chances," Jenny observed, wiping her hands on a rag. 9 ships to hunt down 1 stolen vessel. Either they really want those star maps back, or they're sending a message. "Both," Vale said grimly. "The maps show that they've never had a ship successfully stolen before. This is unprecedented for them. They can't afford to let us escape, because it would undermine their entire reputation for invincibility." Tom highlighted a section of the tactical display. "According to their own doctrine, they'll try to disable us first. They want the ship back intact, along with any intelligence we might have gathered. That gives us an advantage." Vale nodded slowly. The Caliph were coming to recapture their property, following standard procedures developed over centuries of successful conquests. They would approach in formation, demand surrender, and when that failed, they would use precision strikes to disable the stolen vessel's engines and weapons. It was exactly what humans would have done if they'd been fighting other humans. "Rick, can you access their fleet communication network through the star maps?" "Already working on it. Their command protocols are surprisingly standardized." "I should be able to monitor their tactical chatter, maybe even inject false data into their sensor feeds." "Jenny, what's the status on our surprise packages?" She grinned, and Vale was reminded why his demolitions expert had been court-martialed twice before volunteering for this mission. 27 improvised warheads, each one designed to exploit specific weaknesses in Caliph shield harmonics. Plus a few special surprises I've been working on with their own plasma conduit technology. "Tom, sensor modifications?" Complete. We can track their ships while remaining effectively invisible to their sensors. Human stealth technology was always more advanced than their detection systems anticipated. Vale looked around the command center at his small crew. 4 humans against 9 Caliph ships in a battle that would determine whether humanity had a future among the stars. The odds were impossible. The enemy was vastly superior in every measurable way. But the Caliph had made one crucial error. They'd given humans access to their technology, their tactical doctrine, and their strategic weaknesses. They'd assumed that primitive meant helpless. Captain Marcus Vale smiled as he began issuing orders. Time to demonstrate why that assumption would cost them everything. War Leader Kreth's compound eyes studied the tactical display with growing irritation. The stolen vessel had been detected in the asteroid field, exactly where the predictive algorithms had indicated it would attempt to hide. The primitive species followed such obvious patterns. Maintain standard approach formation, he clicked to his fleet commanders. The vessel appears to be powered down. They are likely attempting to mask their thermal signature among the asteroids. The Caliph 9th Fleet moved through space like a perfectly choreographed dance. 9 warships in diamond formation, their obsidian hulls reflecting the distant star's light. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, refined through centuries of conquest. The humans had stolen one vessel, but they couldn't possibly understand how to operate it effectively. War Leader, his sensor operator's mandibles clicked nervously. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the asteroid field. The patterns don't match standard Caliph systems. Kreth's attention sharpened. Explain. The shattering spear appears to be broadcasting on multiple frequencies simultaneously. The signal pattern is ... chaotic, nothing like our standard communication. Protocols. Primitives attempting to modify our technology, Kreth dismissed. Continue approach. Prepare boarding parties. But something nagged at his tactical instincts. The humans had managed to steal a ship from orbit around their homeworld. Something no species had accomplished in over 2 centuries of Caliph expansion. Perhaps they deserved more respect than initial intelligence had suggested. 3 light minutes away, Captain Marcus Vale watched the Caliph fleet approach with grim satisfaction. The enemy was following their standard tactical doctrine exactly as the stolen star maps had predicted. Diamond formation, sensor sweeps at regular intervals, communications chatter following predictable patterns. They're beautiful, Tom murmured, monitoring the Caliph fleet's approach. Look at that formation discipline. Perfect spacing, optimal firing angles, mutual support overlapping at every vector. Beautiful and predictable, Vale replied. Rick, are you ready with the communication hack? Standing by. I've identified their command frequency and uploaded the virus into their quantum entanglement network. Once I trigger it, their fleet coordination will be compromised for approximately 4 minutes. Jenny, weapon status? All 27. Surprises are armed and ready. Plus I've rigged the main plasma cannon to overload on command. It should produce a lovely fireworks display right when they're expecting us to surrender. Vale felt the familiar calm that came before battle. The Caliph had superior numbers, better weapons, and centuries of experience. But they'd never fought humans before. They'd never faced an enemy that could look at their own tactical doctrine and turn it into a weapon. Tom, initiate the sensor ghosts. The stolen ship's modified sensors began broadcasting false images into space. To the Caliph fleet, it would appear that the shattering spear was disabled and drifting, its crew likely dead or dying. The perfect scenario for a boarding action. War Leader, the stolen vessel appears to have suffered catastrophic system failure, the sensor operator reported. Life support is failing, weapons are offline, engines are cold. Kreth's satisfaction was tempered by suspicion. Too convenient. Maintain defensive posture. But the tactical doctrine was clear. A disabled vessel posed no threat and contained valuable intelligence. The boarding action would proceed according to standard protocol. All ships, prepare for docking maneuvers. Secure the vessel and capture any surviving primitives for interrogation. The Caliph fleet began to shift formation, moving from attack posture to boarding configuration. Ships spread out to surround the asteroid field, cutting off any possible escape routes. The command dreadnought moved forward, its massive bulk dwarfing the smaller vessels. "Now," Vale said quietly. Rick's fingers flew across his keyboard, triggering the communication virus. Instantly, the Caliph fleet's perfect coordination shattered. Ships began receiving contradictory orders, sensor data became corrupted, and the quantum entanglement network that had enabled their flawless, tactical coordination for centuries began feeding them false information. "What is happening?" Kreth demanded as his command center erupted in chaos. "Restore communications immediately." But it was too late. The humans had turned the Caliph's own technology against them, exploiting vulnerabilities that had never been tested because no enemy had ever gained access to their systems. Jenny's improvised weapons, launched from concealed positions throughout the asteroid field. 27 warheads, each one designed to exploit specific weaknesses in Calith's shield. Harmonics. The alien ship's defenses, calibrated to stop conventional weapons, were helpless against devices that used their own plasma conduit technology as a delivery system. The first explosions lit up the void like miniature suns. Calith's shields flickered and failed as the improvised warheads delivered their payloads directly into the ship's vulnerable systems. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships found themselves blind, deaf, and struggling to maintain basic system functionality. "Impossible," Kreth clicked, his compound eyes tracking the damage reports flooding his command center. "These are primitives. They cannot possibly understand our technology well enough to." His words were cut off as the shattering spear suddenly blazed to life, its stolen weapon systems now fully integrated with human tactical doctrine. The ship that had appeared dead and helpless was revealed as a perfectly positioned predator, ready to strike at the heart of the Caliph formation. Captain Marcus Vale smiled as he gave the order to fire. The Caliph had expected to face primitives, armed with stolen weapons they couldn't possibly understand. Instead, they were about to learn why underestimating human adaptability was the last mistake they'd ever make. The shattering spear erupted from the asteroid field like a metallic comet, its hybrid weapon system speaking with the voice of human fury. The main plasma cannon, modified with Jenny's improvised overload system, lanced across space to strike the Caliph Command Dreadnought's primary shield generator. The impact wasn't just devastating, it was precisely calculated to create a cascade failure that would leave the massive ship vulnerable for exactly 43 seconds. War Leader. Kreth watched in horror as his flagship shields collapsed in a pattern that should have been impossible for primitives to predict. The humans weren't just using stolen technology, they were using it better than the Caliph themselves. "All ships, emergency scatter formation." He clicked frantically. "They've compromised our communication network." But the damage was already done. The Caliph Ninth Fleet, bred for centuries of coordinated tactics, found themselves fighting as individuals for the first time in their military history. Ships that had moved in perfect harmony moments before now struggled to avoid colliding with each other as corrupted sensor data fed them false positioning information. Captain Marcus Vale felt the familiar surge of combat clarity as he watched his plan unfold. The stolen star maps had revealed that the Caliph had never faced an opponent who could turn their own tactical doctrine against them. Their entire military culture was based on technological superiority and overwhelming force, not adaptability. "Tom, target their communication relay ship," Vale ordered. "If we can take out their quantum entanglement array, they'll be completely deaf." The shattering spear rolled through space with impossible grace, its movements a blend of Caliph engineering and human tactical instinct. The ship's original design had been optimized for straight-line attacks against similarly equipped opponents. But under human control, it moved like a predator, using the asteroid field's gravitational eddies to mask its approach vectors. "Multiple targets locked," Tom reported, his hands flying across the hybrid control systems. "Jenny's modifications are working perfectly. Their shield harmonics are completely vulnerable to our improvised warheads." The communication relay ship died in a brilliant flash of overloaded plasma conduits. Suddenly, the Caliph fleet was reduced to line-of-sight communication, their perfect coordination shattered by the loss of their technological advantage. "Impossible," Kreth repeated, his compound eyes tracking the tactical display as his fleet dissolved into chaos. "They cannot be learning our systems this quickly. No species has ever." His words were cut off as another Caliph ship exploded. Its weapon systems turned against itself by a virus that Rick had injected into the fleet's shared database. The humans weren't just fighting with stolen weapons, they were reprogramming Caliph technology in real time, turning each ship into a weapon against its own fleet. "War leader, we're losing ships faster than we can compensate," his tactical officer reported. "The primitives are exploiting vulnerabilities we didn't know existed," but Kreth was beginning to understand. These weren't primitives. They were something the Caliph Empire had never encountered before, a species that could adapt faster than they could be conquered. Every advantage the Caliph possessed was being systematically analyzed, understood, and turned into a weakness. "Focus. All remaining fire on the stolen vessel," he ordered. "If we can destroy them, we can still salvage this engagement." The remaining Caliph ships began to converge on the shattering spear, their weapons blazing with deadly efficiency. But Marcus Vale had anticipated this response. It was exactly what the tactical doctrine said they would do when faced with an unexpected threat. "Now, Jenny," he said quietly. The demolitions expert triggered her final surprise. Throughout the asteroid field, hidden charges detonated in carefully calculated sequence. The explosions weren't meant to damage the Caliph ships directly. They were meant to alter the gravitational dynamics of the entire battlefield. Suddenly, the asteroids began to move. Massive rocks that had been drifting in stable orbits for millions of years shifted their trajectories, creating a three-dimensional maze of moving obstacles. The Caliph fleet, designed for open space combat, found themselves trapped in an environment that changed by the second. "They're using the asteroids as weapons," Kreth realized, his tactical mind finally grasping the scope of human ingenuity. "They've turned the entire battlefield into a weapon system." Ship after ship fell victim to the moving maze. Caliph vessels, their sensors corrupted by the communication virus, collided with asteroids they couldn't track. Others found themselves separated from their fleetmates, picked off one by the shattering spear as it moved through the chaos with impossible precision. "How?" Kreth demanded, watching his fleet die around him. "How do they know exactly where every asteroid will be?" The answer was simple, though the war leader couldn't have understood it. Humans had been tracking asteroids for centuries, long before they'd achieved interstellar flight. They understood orbital mechanics, gravitational dynamics, and three-dimensional navigation in ways that the Caliph, with their reliance on technological superiority, had never needed to learn. "Boss, we're down to 3 enemy ships," Tom reported. "The command dreadnought and 2 escorts. They're trying to break out of the asteroid field." Vale nodded grimly. The Caliph were finally learning. But it was too late. The stolen star maps had revealed every weakness in their tactical doctrine, and human ingenuity had exploited every single one. "Rick, can you access the dreadnoughts?" "Self-destruct sequence? Already working on it. Their security protocols are sophisticated, but they're not designed to resist someone who has complete access to their system architecture." The final phase of the battle was about to begin. The Caliph had brought 9 ships to destroy 1 stolen vessel. Soon, they would discover why underestimating humanity was the last mistake their empire would ever make. War leader Kreth stood alone in his command center, watching the tactical display with the fascination of a creature witnessing its own extinction. Of the 9 ships that had comprised the elite Caliph Ninth Fleet, only his command dreadnought remained. The others floated as expanding clouds of glowing debris, their perfect technology turned against them by a species the Empire had dismissed as primitives. "War leader," his remaining tactical officer clicked nervously. "We're receiving a transmission from the stolen vessel. They're speaking in our language." Kreth's compound eyes swiveled toward the communication array. "Impossible. They cannot have learned our linguistic protocols in such a short time." But the voice that emerged from the speakers was unmistakably human, speaking fluent Caliph with perfect grammatical structure. "War leader Kreth of the Ninth Fleet, this is Captain Marcus Vale of the human vessel's shattering spear. We need to talk." The audacity was staggering. A primitive species, using stolen technology to contact him in his own language, after destroying 8 of his ships. Kreth activated the communication array, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage. Human. You have committed acts of war against the Caliph Empire. Surrender immediately, and your death will be swift. Vale's laugh echoed through the command center. War leader, I don't think you understand your situation. Your fleet is destroyed. Your communication network is compromised. And we've just transmitted complete tactical specifications for every Caliph ship class to every human colony in this sector. Kreth felt his exoskeleton shiver with cold realization. You cannot have. We didn't just steal your star maps, war leader. We've been broadcasting them. Every human settlement, every colony ship, every military installation now knows exactly where your fleets are positioned. They know your tactical doctrine, your technology specifications, and most importantly, they know how to kill your ships. The implications crashed over Kreth like a tidal wave. The Caliph Empire's power was based on technological superiority and tactical unpredictability. If every species they'd conquered now had access to their complete military intelligence. This is impossible, he clicked weakly. You are primitives. You cannot learn our technology so quickly. That's your mistake, war leader. You assumed that primitive meant stupid. You thought that technological inferiority meant we couldn't adapt, but humans have been adapting for millions of years. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and our own stupidity. We learn, we adapt, and we overcome. Rick's voice crackled. Through the Shattering Spear's communication system. Boss, I've got access to their command network. The Dreadnought's self-destruct sequence is armed and ready. But Vale had a different idea. War leader, you have a choice. You can die here. Another victim of your empire's arrogance. Or you can return to your superiors and deliver a message. What message? Kreth asked, though he already knew his fate was sealed. Tell them that humanity is coming. Tell them that we've learned their technology, stolen their star maps, and turned their own weapons against them. Tell them that every species they've conquered now knows exactly how to kill them. The communication array crackled with static as the Shattering Spear began to move away from the asteroid field. But Vale wasn't finished. And war leader? Tell them that this is just the beginning. We've identified 17 supply depots, 43 fleet bases, and over 200 conquest routes from your star maps. We know where your ships are, where they're going, and how to destroy them. Kreth watched the stolen vessel disappear into hyperspace, carrying with it the complete destruction of everything the Caliph Empire had built. The star maps weren't just navigation data, they were the blueprint for galactic conquest, and now they were in the hands of humanity. War leader, his tactical officer clicked hesitantly. What are your orders? Kreth looked at the expanding debris clouds that had once been the pride of the Caliph fleet. 8 ships destroyed by 4 humans using stolen technology and tactical improvisation. The Empire's military doctrine, perfected over centuries of conquest, had been dissected and turned into a weapon against itself. Set course for the capital, he ordered. The High Command must know what we're facing. But even as he gave the order, Kreth knew it was too late. The humans had done more than steal technology. They'd stolen the Empire's invincibility. Every species that had ever fallen to Caliph conquest now knew exactly how their oppressors could be defeated. As the Dreadnought limped toward home, emergency broadcasts began flooding the quantum communication network. Human voices speaking in dozens of alien languages, transmitting the stolen star maps to every corner of the galaxy. The Caliph Empire's greatest secrets were spreading like a virus, carried by the very communication system they'd used to coordinate their conquests. Captain Marcus Vale stood in the command center of the Shattering Spear, watching the long-range sensors as they tracked the fleeing Caliph dreadnought. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, already planning their next strike against the Empire's supply lines. Boss, Jenny said, looking up from her weapons console, we've got enough firepower to take out their main fleet base at Beta Centauri. The star maps show it's lightly defended. Vale nodded, but his attention was focused on the broader tactical picture. The stolen star maps had shown him the true scope of the Caliph Empire's reach. 17,000 conquered worlds, millions of enslaved species, and fleet assets that dwarfed anything humanity had ever imagined. But they'd also shown him something else. The Empire's greatest weakness wasn't technological, it was psychological. They'd grown complacent, relying on superior technology and overwhelming force. They'd never faced an enemy that could learn faster than they could adapt. "Set course for the nearest human colony," Vale ordered. "We've got star maps to deliver. And a war to win." The shattering spear jumped to hyperspace, carrying with it the seeds of the Caliph Empire's destruction. Behind them, the glowing debris of 9 warships drifted through the asteroid field, a monument to the fatal error of underestimating human ingenuity. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had never stayed conquered for long.